NBA playoffs are happening right now. It's the first round. We're going to be talking surprises, what we thought wouldn't happen that did, what happened that we didn't think would happen and did. Plus, all the other news going on in the playoffs right now. Are the Celtics for real, or is this just going to be another season like before? And can the Magic actually do the impossible and beat the Cavaliers? All this next on the Brick House. Welcome into the Brick House. Obviously, we're talking all that basketball news and analytics of the first round of the playoffs. But first, I want to give a big shout out to one of our affiliates, and that is Dubby. That is right. If you need a jitterless sports energy drink that doesn't have anything you don't want, everything you do want, Dubby is the one for you. Trust me, I love this stuff. I've already had 2 of their different flavors, both of them phenomenal. Right now I got the Calio Cream, which is an orange creamsicle flavor. Love that shit. I mix it with orange juice in the morning. It's phenomenal. They use coffee bean extract, none of that sugar, none of that, artificial caffeine, none of that stuff. Straight from the bean, just like you would if you had coffee, but better flavor if you're not a coffee drinker. I drink both, so it doesn't matter to me. But go get yourself some W. They got all kinds of stuff: shaker bottles, clothes, gym bags, sticker packs, and they even have this nice aluminum 20-ounce tumbler that I got ordered. It's coming to the house soon. You'll see on these episodes real soon. But go to w.gg, use the code THEHOUSECALL, all caps, no spaces, THEHOUSECALL. Get yourself 10% off your order and get your energy on. Now, Karan, it has been an interesting playoff so far. Your Knicks did lose a game to the 76ers recently. I will tell you right now, we're going to start with the Knicks. Okay. It's the first time back here in a long time. I'm going to let you go on your Knicks rant right now. Okay. The Knicks obviously had a lot of injuries throughout the year. There were some questions whether or not they'd be able to survive without some of their key players that are on the mend right now, and they have so far looked exactly like they were supposed to. Jalen Brunson is a star. He's a guaranteed number 1 on a team, and it's crazy to think that the Dallas Mavericks let him go in the first place, but he is now a Knick, and he has been balling out even more so than he did last year, and they look like they are on the road to upsetting and beating and putting the 76ers, who everyone thought was going to be a top 3 seed, and ended up in the play-in. And they're going to be sending them home in the first round. Do you see that continuing, or do the 76ers really have a shot here if they can get some things going for themselves?
Okay, so the key thing about me, and salute to you, Joe, the key thing about me is I'm the objective fan. I run a channel, of course, called The Objective Knicks Fan, but I am objective. So the reason why I picked the Knicks in 5 games is not because I'm a Knicks fan. It's because the Knicks, to me, are just the better team. And honestly, Joel Embiid's health does play a role. I can't front on that. But at the same time, if you've been watching basketball, the Knicks, they're the second team in the East to win over 50 games. Only them and the Celtics are your Celtics, Joe. So the Knicks have been for real, despite not being healthy themselves. We spent a lot of games. Mitchell Robinson, who was our starting center, he missed over 50 games. Julius Randle, he's missed half the season with his shoulder injury, and OG Anunoby missed over 20 games, and he came in halfway through the season. So this Knicks team is built to withstand any sort of resistance that come their way. They're battle tested. I've been watching them every single game. Sometimes I watch the games twice. I'm telling you right now, people think that the Sixers are the favorite because of Joel Embiid, and really mostly Joel Embiid and a little bit of Maxey because he was an MVP candidate. But when you really watch the games, and if you watch the Knicks play the Sixers 4 times this year, I mean, the Knicks were the better team on the floor, even though they have the names, they have the star power, right? But now I'm glad you said what you said, Joe. Jalen Brunson is a star in this league, and I've been screaming that all season. And it's funny to see how the narrative changed on him. First, he was too small and these things in the third. Now he's an MVP candidate. So, and I'm giving respect to Joel Embiid and Maxey. I wasn't one of those crazy people that say they're going to get swept. I do have the Knicks in 5. I think that home court advantage will be a thing. And what you have to understand, we call Philly little bro, at least just in the playoffs. Philly people don't kill me, but to New York, you guys are little bro. And like I said on my podcast, the Knicks fans did exactly what they needed to do in game 3. 1, which was not get blown out, because I knew they were going to lose that game. And then 2, go there heavy. Knick Nation was there. Make it feel like they're in Madison Square Garden. That's what's going to happen today. Well, we're recording the morning of game day. So I anticipate the Knicks will win tonight or this afternoon, and then game 5 back in the Garden.
Yeah, I mean, it is really quite incredible. The 76ers have been, obviously, the process is, we've all been saying it's done for a long time. Joel Embiid, this is another one of the things, I mean, Matt and I talked about it last week. If they get knocked out here, after 5 games, they only win 1 against the Knicks, in a series where a lot of people thought they had a shot. This is going to be a competitive 7-game series. It should be. But if they lose, in 5 and they get sent home, the Philadelphia 76ers have to go home, take a long look in the mirror, and decide if it's time to just cancel the entire show and get whatever you can for these guys and just move on. I think Maxey you try to keep, but Embiid, that's a valuable piece. Yeah. And it just goes to show in this league, your best player cannot be a center. Like it's just what it comes down to. Your best player can't be a center in this league. And the only time it can be is if they do something like the Joker. Right. What the Joker does is that he doesn't just do it for himself; he does it for everybody, right? And he's getting everyone involved. He can dribble, can do all those sorts of things. I think he's a better shooter than Joel Embiid is in general. Shoots a better 3-pointer than Joel Embiid does, and he can stretch the floor. Embiid doesn't stretch the floor that well, but right. As a 2, on a team like that has a solid 1, he's very, very good. And I think that right. the Sixers are going to have to make a really take a long look and see if they can win with him in the long term. And I personally think the answer is no. I think that if you could have won with him, you've given him everything. You've plugged all these people in. You've brought people in. You've tried to draft people in. You've done everything possible to get this guy a championship with him as your focal point on your team. And all I've seen is that you can't, because teams are willing to let him beat you with 2-pointers because they're going to come down and splash 3s.
Right.
And in a league where you have Kristaps Porzingis and you have the Joker and you have Giannis and all these other guys who are big physical guys who can play down on the block but can also step out and shoot 3s. Embiid, I don't know if he's got the lateral quickness to keep up with these guys if they dribble drive. I don't think he's got the quickness to do that and stuff like that. So it puts him in a defensive liability situation at the rim, in the paint, inside 20 feet. I think he's a great defender. On the perimeter, putting him in those situations, he's a liability, and you don't have in Philly the people around him to be able to feign help or give help and get back and stop some of these great 3-point shooters you're going to run into in the playoffs. So I think the 76ers, if they do lose this game, if they lose this series at all, I think they have to take a strong look at what the possibilities are this offseason, and I'm sticking to it. I believe that this could be the end of Joel Embiid in Philly if they don't get out of the first round.
Wow.
And that might be a big, bold take, but we've seen it before. We've seen people move on from stars, if we want to call them, because you can't win a championship with them. And so right. I'm with you. I think the Knicks are going to win this series. I've liked the Knicks. The Knicks have proved the doubters wrong all year. I was one of them early on, especially when the injury started to mount. I thought, that Jalen Brunson was good, but he couldn't carry. He's proven me wrong. They've had role players who have stepped into starting spots who have shown that, hey, we can do this job. There's a reason we're here. We're not just bench guys. And, it's funny when you think about it, there's certain people who just perform better when they start a game. They just perform better when they're out there 20 plus minutes instead of 14 because they get into a rhythm. The game comes easier to them. We've seen that happen multiple times. There's very few people that can go from a starting role to the bench and still stay on the same performance gap, because you don't get, and you have to be like instantaneously ready to go. And a lot of people require the game to come to them over time, and you don't get that with inconsistency off the bench. So, having these guys come off the bench and be able to provide that and do all these things and step into these starting roles for these injured stars that we were hoping to be there and they're not. The Knicks shows the depth right there, and I think they have a very solid chance to make an Eastern Conference Finals run. I think that they have just as good a chance of any of the other people or other teams that are going right now. And you kind of look up and down the East. The Pacers don't play good defense. The Bucks are missing 2 stars because now it's we'll get into that in a second. But it seems Damian Lillard may be out for the remainder of the season with an Achilles strain. So, but it's just been going and going and going like this. But we started with the Knicks. We're going to go ahead and move to my team, the Boston Celtics, and this is a surprise, all right? And some people are going to say it's a surprise because they're like, oh, the Miami Heat don't have Jimmy Butler. This should be a sweep. And you know what? I agree. It should be a sweep. However, some people are like, I can't believe we lost one at home. I can. It's who they are, man. Like, this is who the Celtics are. They take people for granted. they just assume that because they're that good, they're just going to walk over people. And then when they get smacked up because they didn't come in ready to go, everyone's like, what happened? Where was the intensity? And then, they come out and they have to save face. I thought we closed out well. Did you? Because I watched you you got screened, got kind of bounced off your stuff. And then instead of continuing to chase Jaylen Brown, you just sat there and watched Tyler Hero splash a three from 5 feet away. Didn't make an attempt or anything. And that was how the whole game went. It was hero ball. They didn't move the ball well. The offense didn't flow well. And that's kind of who the Celtics are. We've seen them go through stages of this in the playoffs against top-tier defensive teams where they just get stagnant on the offensive side. And it makes no sense because they have 5 guys, 6 or 7 actually, who can score the ball if they run their offense well, right? They have 2 or 3 guys who can score on their own. And yet still the ball gets stagnant. They don't move the ball well. They don't play as a team well sometimes. And it's kind of like this ebb and flow of who the Boston Celtics are. And so I was not surprised that they lost at home to the Miami Heat. Plus, Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the league right now. All right. And no disrespect to Pop and San Antonio or some of the other coaches and, Coach of the Year candidates, everything like that. But Eric Spoelstra probably could win Coach of the Year every year. All right. And the fact that they did get blown out 2 of the 3 games, they should. They don't have the talent on the floor to match the Celtics. However, the fact you stole a game and you had to shoot the best game of your life, but you did it, that right there tells me everything I need to know about the Miami Heat. So I was not surprised that the Celtics lost a game. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this went 6 games. That's just who the Celtics are. They don't seem to play. They blow people out and they're like, all right, we know who they are. It's fine. And then they come out and they're down 30 and they're like, oh shit, probably should have tried a little harder today. And that's how it works. And they end up playing more games than they need to. So I still think the Celtics win the series. I don't think there's anything astronomical going to happen where the Miami Heat can pull off some sort of miraculous comeback, But at the same time, I think this series should have been over in 4. This should not have even been a question. And I said it in the episode with Matt last week. I said, that they need to come out and dominate. There needs to be no question, no even realm of possibility that they are not the dominant team that they are. And by game 2, they had already proven that they're not. They came out, they was meh. So, I mean, at that point, I'm already kind of I don't have the faith in them to make a finals run if that's how they're going to play against a team that's missing its top playoff performer, right? And they have other guys, but most of those guys feed off of Jimmy, and he's not there. And they still beat you by 10 in your own house. I could have got it if they lost, how the Knicks lost in Philly. I could have got, if the Celtics went and lost the first game in Miami. But you didn't. You lost the first fucking game. You lost your first fucking game in the Garden in game 2 by 10, by double digits at home to a team that's missing its best playoff performer.
Right.
That to me, as a Celtics fan, as a basketball fan, that's concerning. Because you're not going to, the next team you run into isn't going to be missing their star. You're going to be facing a fully loaded team. So I don't know. What are your feelings on the Celtics, man? I know you're the objective fan here. I'm the biased. Fan. I'm biased. I'm a negative Boston sports fan sometimes. So
yeah. Well, the good news is good news and bad news. So the Celtics, and actually that show we did previewing the season, I said, the Celtics are going to be amazing. They'll probably be the first seed, and eventually they're going to crash and burn. Now, they're not going to crash and burn in the first round. You have to understand, in this case, basketball can be compared to boxing where style makes fights. We watched Devin Haney, who was this guy who's supposed to be the pound for pound. He beats everybody. He loses to Ryan Garcia, a guy who Tank Davis knocked out. And people think Devin Haney can beat Tank by boxing him. So the reason why I go to that analogy is that the Celtics and the Heat have this special bond where it doesn't matter who's first, who's eighth, who's fourth. And when these two teams play, they're on the same level. Now, what's holding back the Heat is, of course, like you said, Jimmy Butler, not having him. I think that if they had Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier, this would be a 7-game series. I still would favor the Celtics, but the one stat in this series that I feel like is now coming back to haunt Miami is that the road team and the Celtics and the Heat have won 12. They're 12-15. So it's something about being on the road in a series between the Celtics and the Heat where the Celtics should take game 4 because the road team has been the dominant team. And I think that that's what's going to happen unless Miami can muster up the coverage to, put up it's going to take another historic 3-point performance, which I don't see coming. That's why I think the Celtics realistically close this out in 5 games. But don't be surprised if the Heat can win 1 game in Miami. This series can be a long series. It can go to 6, maybe 7. But like I said, because the road team has been so dominant, I can see the Celtics honestly getting this next one and then closing it out in Boston or possibly in Miami in game 6. So I think the Celtics will be fine because their second round matchup will not be on their level. But to also piggyback and get into some of the more darker news, well, I'm not sure if you took the first part of what I said as dark news too, because the road team thing, but the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Magic, those teams realistically they're not going to pose a threat to the Celtics. The Celtics will face their first real threat in the Eastern Conference Finals, whether it's the Knicks, whether it's the Pacers, whether it's the Bucks. I think that Eastern Conference Finals will determine whether or not the Celtics will crash and burn. They can get away with the hero ball stuff. Like you said, I feel against these lesser teams, they live and die by the 3. I don't understand. You got a guy 7'4". He should be more paint oriented, especially when his shot is not falling. That's why they lost game 2. They got guys out there, then they take tough shots. Jason Tatum has to shoot the fadeaway. I don't know why. It's like you're 6'9", you're going up against guys that's most of the time shorter than you. I think you should take them to the basket and run more plays to make life easier, because I feel like Boston is kind of a little overly confident at times based off of how you said they got guys that can make their own shots. So they put their guys in positions where here's the ball, catch it from 20 feet out, and go make a play. And I think that in the finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals, those shots will be a lot harder. So we'll see. But I do think the Celtics still are the favorite to get to the finals. And I would be I'm not gonna say I would be surprised if they don't make it, but that's just my favorite pick right now is the Celtics, realistically, in a realistic world.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. They're like I think a lot of people have them penciled in as an NBA Finals, candidate out of the East. There's a lot of questions with a lot of other teams. The Orlando Magic are young. We'll talk about them in a second. The Cavaliers, do they have enough? There's some questions there. Then you look at the Bucks. They're aging. They're starting to get hurt. Giannis is already not playing. Dame has the Achilles injury that seems like he's probably not going to play.
Right.
The Pacers, they score a lot of points, but they don't play good defense. Maybe they could steal a game or two there. And then you got the Knicks, who, like I said, they're missing a couple of key guys, but they've had people step up for them. And then, it just comes down to, is it enough to beat, a star-studded cast? So we've already, been back and forth on this a lot. I know a lot of people have, of whether the Celtics really have someone that's even on their level in the East because of the injuries, because of those things.
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see. We're going to talk about this Magic and Cavaliers series. And this is a series that Matt and I discussed, and we said, if the Magic had a little more playoff experience, they would probably win this series. But we picked the Cavs, I think, in like 5 or 6 because we're just like, the Magic don't have enough. And here we are, 4 games in, and it's a 2-2 tie. I mean, holy crap. The Magic, they're just proving the doubters wrong. They're like, yeah, we don't have a lot of playoff experience. We're a young core. Who gives a shit? And it's like, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who we'll talk about later as well, they're the same way. Like, they're just absolutely balling out and doing all this great stuff. But yeah, the Magic right now, I mean, Wagner's just absolutely popping off. He had 34 points in their game yesterday. I think it was almost a 30-point win. I think they got it at 23. So it is an insane to see just how good the Magic are right now. And keeping up with the Cavaliers, who a lot of people thought, after that Knicks series last year, they got the experience. They needed to really make a deep run here. And now it's looking like they're just running into more. It's another team that's like, hey, we have all this stars, we have all this talent, and yet, we're getting matched by a team that, is young, and this is like their first true playoff test, right? And they're matching us, straight up like it's nothing, and it brings doubt into you from a fan perspective, from a front office perspective, if you have the right guys on the team. And this isn't like the Cavaliers have just been here, kind of haven't been there. They've been a 4 seed the last 2 years, 4 or 5 seed the last 2 years. So this is not new to them. This is something where they should be, but at the same time, like you're starting to see, I just don't know if the Cavaliers have enough, and it makes me wonder, like, are they going to be like? I believe they're buyers this year. They can if they can find some key pieces to get in there, but if it doesn't work next year, it's a problem. I honestly, the more I'm looking at this series, the more I'm checking it out and everything like that, I think that the Orlando Magic have a significantly better chance than I thought they did, and I see this going 7. I think this is a 7-game series. Just based off of it right there, it's going to be hard telling how this shakes out. But the Magic have outperformed what I thought they would. They didn't win on the road, obviously. They lost the first 2 games, went down 2-0. Everyone thought, yep, this is exactly what we expected. They lost by 14 points, by 10 points, and then they come back and they blow out, the Cavaliers almost by 40, and then almost by 30. Right. So at this point, they're going back to Cleveland here in 2 days. If they win that game, suddenly look out, because the Magic were not bad offensively, and they are not bad defensively. They are a dark horse now. If they knock off the Cavaliers, then everyone has to take a step back and go, oh boy, this team's tough, right? Like, and even if they do, like, when the Celtics and everything like that, if they beat the Cavs, I don't know if I'm, as a Celtics fan, going to overlook the Magic. I don't think I can, because they have a lot of talent. It's just young talent, right? And so at that point, this is really going to come down to one of those questions you got to ask yourself as a Celtics fan. It's like, who would you rather see? Would you rather see the Cavaliers, or would you rather see the Magic? Personally, I would rather see the Magic or the Cavaliers. I don't want anything to do with the Magic, because if they have shown they have the playoff mentality with that talent level, they're ahead of schedule at this point. So, give me your feelings on this Magic Cavaliers series, man.
So you're right. In terms of the Celtics, if I'm the Celtics, I probably would rather see the Cavs, though, to be honest. In my humble opinion, I think that neither team is on their level. And honestly, just to be respectful, I think the Celtics would win either series in 5 games. The reason why I say that, first off, this is the most even series. I don't care what no one thought. And I knew this going into the playoffs, even more even than the Clippers and the Mavs. The reason why in the regular season, they went 2-2, not that the regular season matters in the postseason, but also the Magic, for some reason, they are, we know the reason, it's Disney. They are the 3rd best home team record-wise in the East. When they get into Orlando, it's like they feel like Superman. They got their powers, they got their vibranium. Whatever superhero needs, whatever, you could pick a superhero when they're in the environment, how they thrive, whether it's Aquaman in the water. That's what Orlando is to the Magic. They're going to look like the greatest thing ever. On the road, however, they're not a great road team. They're amongst the worst road team of teams in the playoffs at 18-23. And so realistically, I think, Joe, you're right. The series will go 7 games only because the Magic are not a great road team. So I have the assumption that they will win every Orlando game. But when it gets to game 7 in Cleveland, I don't think they will be able to overcome that. Now, if they do win game 5, yes, Orlando will close out the series in game 6, because Cleveland will not go into Orlando and win. I'm sorry, I just don't see it based on how these teams are playing. Now, the Cavs, in my opinion, should win the series because they have the best player in Donovan Mitchell in the series. And sometimes I think that if you have 2 teams that are even, then the team with the better star should win that series. I mean, in theory. I mean, that doesn't always really work out that way. But I think that the Cavaliers, they are just not that good. They don't really defend the perimeter well. And that's definitely going to come back to bite you against Boston. Forget about it. I mean, Boston will just Boston has so many great perimeter players. Like, that is the Achilles heel for the Cavs. That's why the magic you see with Franz Wagner, right? Is really they don't have no answer for him. They don't have nobody that can guard his size and his athletic ability, whether he's on the perimeter, whether he's in the paint. They don't have nobody to match that. That's Boston's whole team, pretty much, So I think that the Cavaliers, they got a favorable matchup, and they got a team that's young and is not a good road team. Any other team, to me, in the Eastern Conference that's in the playoffs right now, Pacers would beat the Cavaliers probably convincingly within 5 to 6 games. So that's just how I see the Cavs. I don't think the Celtics, to be realistic, what if they get past the Heat, the second round is going to be a wash. The Eastern Conference Finals will be their first test, and then we really will see what the Boston Celtics is made of at that point. But yeah, Cavs, Magic. I'm not really, it's exciting to watch, but don't be surprised if the Cavs come back in Game 5 and blow out the Magic. So
right. I mean, like I said, I'm expecting that to happen, but I'm not guaranteeing anything. No
guarantees.
The Magic have officially made it to where you cannot look past them anymore. Like this, this should have been I feel like a lot of people expected them to lose this in 5, possibly 4, just because of their youth, and they belong. They have proven that they belong. Magic's fans, you guys are back. This is your coming of age story right here. The Magic are going to be in the playoffs for years to come. This is your first, inside of it, and in a weak East that has a lot of uncertainty, top to bottom, based on how teams perform. The Magic can be there for a long time, but we're going to move on to the last matchup of the East, and that is the Bucks and the Pacers. And the Bucks, listen, you fired your head coach. Because you were winning in spite of him, I guess, is the best way I could describe for why you did it. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense. I've never seen a team who was like, 2 seed in the East, like a game and a half back or whatever it was. Like, you're winning games, you're doing really well, and you're like, you know what, we're going to shake things up. We're going to fire a head coach. I've never seen that. I have never. Usually, a team that's like a quarter to like a third of the way into the season is like got like 4 wins. That they're firing their head coach, not the other way around. All right, like it didn't make sense. And then you bring in Doc Rivers, who, as a Celtics fan, he was the head coach when we won our most recent championship. When we went back again to face the Lakers and lost in 7, but that Game 7 loss was the beginning of Doc Rivers' woes as a Game 7, choke artist, and that's what he is. He does not perform well in Game 7, and now you're going up against a Pacers team that will run you off the floor, right? Like Indy 500 is right there. They're race cars, man. Everyone on that team is a race car, and and their pace showed it. They had one of the most insane paces that I've ever seen from a team per 100 possessions. They do not slow down, and usually that's not a good thing, because in the playoffs you want to slow down, you want to control the pace of the game, you want to make a play. Well, it turns out Indiana's like, we play at one pace and that's our pace, and you're either going to run with us or get blown out. So the Bucks are playing without Giannis. They steal a game because Dame has the game of his life, which we're used to seeing from Dame in the playoffs,
right?
And now Game 4 comes around and Dame's got an Achilles strain, and he's having, pain there, and he's probably out possibly for the rest of the series. And now you're playing, your second game in Indy, and it's going to be a 3-2 or 3-1 lead for Indy, I feel like, coming out of Game 4. And then you have to go back to Milwaukee, and you're hoping Dame's healthy, you're hoping Giannis is there, but they've already said Giannis probably isn't playing this whole series. So you're going to go in with your top 2 guys. And at this point, your entire season is a wash. Like you failed. And the funny thing is that I was not a big fan of the let's get rid of Drew Holiday and get Damian Lillard. I like Dame as a player. I think offensively he's great, but he has defensive flaws. And then you look at what Drew Holiday has done for the Celtics. It wasn't like he was an offensive hindrance,
right?
But he plays substantially better defense. And so
facts.
Your Dame didn't fit the mold of the Milwaukee Bucks, who was, hey, we play very good team defense. We play very good defensively as a team. We control the pace of the game, and we, play very well team offense. We play very good team style of offense that allows everyone to get involved, and we don't really need that number one guy. That's what won you championships.
Right.
And now you've gone away from that. Like, you needed someone to come out and be able to drop 40 at any given moment, but at the same time he gives up 38. So you're only getting a +2 out of him. Drew was giving you like a +11, and you guys still couldn't win. So like, how does that make sense to you? It doesn't. And so then you fire your head coach, you go get Doc Rivers, and you're not even gonna have to worry about it, Doc. You're not even making it to a game 7. Like, like the Pacers are gonna take you in 5, man. Like, or 6 at best. So don't. I don't understand why Milwaukee did it. It was the biggest head scratching move, and it's just consistently been the biggest head scratching move of the year. And I'm just watching the Bucks essentially implode based on leadership. Like, GM level upper management has done the Bucks dirty, and now you're sitting at this point where Giannis is sitting there and he's like, if you don't get me help, I'm leaving. And then you get him, you get him help, but you don't get him the right help. Like, you were just like, we have a guy available and we'll go get him, and it'll make it like, it's kind of like that half-hearted effort, you know what I mean? And it doesn't make sense. So I think the Pacers are taking this one. I thought the Pacers were taking it at the beginning. I still think they were taking it, and the Bucks are they will go down as the biggest disappointment of the 2023-2024 season, bar none.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say the biggest disappointment, but one of them, because I got like 4 other ones here.
I mean, you can't. I guess Memphis is up there,
Yeah, Memphis, right. But even just playoff disappointments. But look, I think that the Bucks had the potential, and in our season preview show, I picked them to win the Eastern Conference. I said I knew the Celtics were gonna be number 1, and Celtics, they lived up to the hype. But I just felt like they would crash and burn, and then I thought that the Bucks would be able to, beat the Celtics. Now, shoot, man, I don't think the Bucks could beat the Magic. I mean, look, the Bucks, you hit it on the nail with the firing of the coach, bringing in Doc. As soon as they did that, I automatically disqualified them from doing anything spectacular. I mean, it's hard to implement a new system, especially midway during the season. You don't even have a training camp to get these guys acclimated to the differences, because Doc is a defensive coach. AJ appears to be more of an offensive-minded coach. And yes, their defense has improved, but it's still not good enough, because, once again, same thing with the Cavs. I feel like they got the same problem. They cannot guard on the perimeter. I know they got Patrick Beverley there. Salute to Patrick Beverley. He does an amazing job. It's just that he's too short. He's too small. So, you got guys like Siakam, Halliburton at 6'5", and Halliburton is not even a guy who I would prepare to defend, because he's more of a passer at times. Sometimes he's not even looking for his shot. So he's getting these other guys involved. He has these other guys feeling like they're Reggie Miller. Like, he puts these guys in position to catch and shoot. Milwaukee cannot defend on the perimeter. Yes, they do have the size on the interior, but even Indiana, they got Miles Turner, who's a guy, I don't know why he just goes under the radar. He's amazing to me, because he can do it all. He can play on the outside, play on the inside, even though I do feel like he's on the outside a lot more than I would like a 7-footer. But and then Pascal Siakam, he's a world champion who's been there. So I think even if Milwaukee was healthy, I still would favor the Pacers in 7 games, because I feel like Siakam can match Giannis to a degree. Not to say Giannis wouldn't get off, but I think that Siakam's production will also be pretty solid. So now those two kind of cancel each other out. Now it's a battle of Dame. Dame has to defend on the perimeter, because these guys, they're like you said, they play at a fast pace, right? They like to get their shooters open, a lot of screens, a lot of just motion. So Dame has to move on the defensive end. He can't just rest on his laurels. So I think because of that, and even in the regular season, like I said, regular season and playoffs is 2 different things. But Pacers won 4 games to 1 for a reason. It's the style of play. I just feel like the Bucks, I don't know what they can do going forward, because they tied to Doc. But yeah, I think that the Bucks are, another embarrassing, disappointing first round exit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy to think too, because at the beginning of the year, you were right. We were all on the Bucks being back to the Eastern Conference Finals here. We didn't count out the Heat, obviously, but it's funny how 82 games and since October, things can change. And here we are, everyone we thought was going to be there is there, maybe not, I thought the Magic might be there. It'd be a kind of a hit or miss thing. But then you look at what the teams actually are, and you're like, wow, like this is a far cry from what these teams were 3 years ago, like 2 years ago, even. Like we had the East used to be the class of the NBA.
Right.
But that is all we have time for today. Thank you for tuning into the Brick House. I hope you liked our West breakdown. I hope you liked our East breakdown. We are going to be tracking this playoffs, the NBA playoffs, the entire time. Hopefully, your next episode will have some round 2 projections for you and predictions for you as well. Let us know in the comments, what do you think the biggest surprise was of this first round so far? Who do you think is going to come out and make it to round 2? And do any of the teams that are currently in a hole in the series have a chance to climb out? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all of our social media platforms, as well as check out all of the other House Call offerings on YouTube and Instagram. We will be back here on the Brick House. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right.